Hey everybody, Drew here, and we're in a 2014 Camry. It's the 4-cylinder SE, and I want to do a review on this car, kind of a retro review. For those of you that might be shopping for one or considering it against, maybe you have like 2004 or 2007 or even a 1994 Toyota Camry. This generation versus the ones before it. I just want to tell you what's better, what's worse, and give an overall view of the car. So first and foremost, the engine and transmission. So I think that starting, and this is going to apply actually to this engine and transmission when it showed up in the year 2010 in the previous generation. And of course, it carried over to this generation. For the first time, the 4-cylinder truly leaves nothing on the table compared to the 6-cylinder, unless you just want the thrill of almost 300 horsepower. The 2.5 liter 4-cylinder and the 6-speed automatic work together wonderfully. And what you've got going on is a dual variable valve timing 2.5 liter 4-cylinder. And by dual variable valve timing, I mean it's able to mechanically adjust the opening and closing of both the exhaust and the intake valves relative to the crankshaft, independent of each other, and both of them, not just single variable valve timing like on the 2.4 that this engine replaced, or the no variable valve timing on the 2.2 that engine replaced. So the engine is substantially more powerful, and it has a much less compromised torque and horsepower curve compared to its predecessor. Then you get into the 6-speed automatic. If you're coming from this goes back to the 80s, but we'll just say there might be some people watching this with a 94 Camry or an 04 Camry that has only a 4-speed automatic. You've got less horsepower, less torque, way more compromise between the two because they're not adjustable, and you've only got 4 gears to divide it amongst. So what you're getting is much more that going on, and you're getting higher RPMs at highway speeds. In this, you've got 6 gears to divide and a much more abundant amount and flexible amount of torque and horsepower. So the engine and transmission in this car is absolutely exquisite compared to if you're coming from a 94 or an 04. The downside of this car right off the bat, actually before we get to that, I should tell you that the 6-speed, it can get torque converter issues, and that's when you're going about 40 and it's like brrr, and that's what the torque converter is between the engine and transmission, and it's designed to be separate so the car could stop and keep running, but then together at certain speeds. And that process of putting it together can unfortunately cause a chatter where you would virtually never have that happen on the 4-speed excuse me, in the 5-speed automatic that it replaced. By the way, the 2.4 from 07, 8, and 9 was a 5-speed automatic. Before that, it was a 4-speed automatic. Now it's a 6-speed automatic, which is standard on this generation. So that's the engine and transmission. Massive improvement in feel and execution. A little bit of a downgrade in reliability, but still much better than pretty much anybody else this year. 2014. So the ride is massively deteriorated compared to even an 07 and 08, definitely compared to an 04, and very much compared to a 94, but that was 32 years ago and it's likely gone. But where Toyota, where Toyota became very successful in the United States is that they mimicked for the American market the American ride, which 90s buyers were looking, were used to. They were raised in the 60s. They were used to cars where you didn't feel any bumps. And Toyota did an absolutely fantastic job in their 90s Camrys, Avalons, even Corollas, of that smooth, soft, literally floaty ride, floats over the bumps. Where in 2002 to 2006, they tightened it up a little bit. They tightened it up enough to start to annoy and alienate some buyers for 07 to 11. This car, especially being the SE, is pretty, it rides very aggressively. In fact, my 8-year-old daughter, which there can't be any less bias of an opinion than an 8-year-old, my 8-year-old daughter, gets out of the car and says, "Dad, I could feel every bump in that car." And she's used to her mom's Suburban. She's used to my Tundra. She's used to 90s Toyota Crowns and Camrys and stuff like that. So she noticed right off the bat how firm this car is. Obviously, she's not driving it, so she can't notice this car is absurdly tight. If you're coming from a 94 Camry, there was, other than a 90s M3 BMW, there was virtually no sedans, if any, that handled this tight. And the fact that it's able to handle this tight while still being, we're actually going to get an opportunity to pass, speaking of that engine and transmission, as the person in front of us is going like 40 in a 55. There we go. So with very little effort, a very calm engine and transmission, it's got a lot of power. So just not to interrupt, but so the ride. So if you're coming from a 90s car or even like a 2004, 2005 Camry, there was candidly nothing anywhere near the affordable price range or reliable. And we're talking BMW M cars that handled this well. This car handles phenomenally. You could toss it through corners. And obviously, folks, it is a Camry. It's not an M series BMW, but you could toss this thing through corners unlike anything that was around, again, in 04 and 94. So fantastic handling, absolutely exquisite handling. It's predictable, it's controllable. Again, this is for a Camry. We're not comparing it to a Porsche 911, but at the cost, and the very substantial cost of a smooth ride. We're outside of Rochester, New York here, and there's a stretch where our 490, our 531, and our 390 come together, and you could not drink coffee in this car. On that stretch of highway, you literally, the coffee is in the cup holder spilling. Wherein I have a 99 Camry, driven dozens of 02 through 2011, the larger style, that this one shares some architecture with. In really a 2011, even an SE, I feel like you could at least drink your coffee on that stretch of road. So the gist of it is we've got an amazing engine and transmission, we've got amazing handling, but we have a very rough ride compared to what a typical Camry owner of the yesteryears is going to be used to. And then we get into interior materials. The seats, especially in the SE model, are exquisite. The bolsters are just absolutely awesome. It's very tight, it's very secure. I personally don't like the fabrics that are, for lack of a better term, slippery. The fabrics in this they don't have any nap to them. They don't have any like pile, like carpet. So you kind of slide around almost like leather, but not nice like leather. That's cheaper and it's sportier, but it's not better. When you get into like over here, the upper dashboard, excuse me, all soft touch materials. You can see it's stitched. You're not going to get that in previous generation Camrys. Your plastics elsewhere where they might have been soft materials, definitely in the 90s cars and in some of the 2000s cars, areas that were soft materials no longer are, but Toyota focused on materials that you can see and materials that you might touch being softer and nicer. So the upper dash, the steering wheel, this car has paddle shifters, which are phenomenal. The buttons on the steering wheel are very, very sporty, cockpit, tactical feeling, awesome. So where you're going to be looking at it, where you're going to see it, feel it, touch it, is definitely an improvement in quality, but areas that you don't see and feel, like down here and stuff, is a downgrade. And in your lower trim models, I'm not sure, they might not even have a rear armrest. This SE model does. So overall, this is a great car. If for me, again, I'm not into sporty. I just like a smooth car. You might be able to see we're on a road right now that's pretty smooth, but as you might have been able to see, the car, the camera's being held by somebody else, and you might see the up and down. That's that person who's holding the camera. That happens to be my son, who's awesome. He's reacting to the bumps in the road, where in a 2007 LE or a 1997, we have a 99 Camry, you don't feel any of it. They float over the road more. So for those of you who like what I've said about the interior materials, you like what I've said about the engine and transmission, you like what I've said a little bit about the handling, but you don't like what I've said about the ride, you would find the LE, which is less expensive and doesn't have as much tech in it, to be more pleasant, and it's enough for you. If you like the tech, but you don't want, again, that harsh ride, you'll give up a little bit of the handling that I praised, to get away from some of the harshness that I'm pointing out as a negative, you would find refuge in the XLE model. So overall, this generation of Camry, it is not as isolated from the road, period. LE, XLE, hybrid, all of it. But it handles better. So my overall take on this car, for the year, You know, it's the end of 2025 right now. This is a 2014. I give it a thumbs up. It's a good car. If you could find a 2007 that's as clean for less money, you might be happier with it. It's a little bit more bulletproof, proven stuff. But if you're into, if you like handling, if you could give up some ride comfort for handling, if you think, well, I know my grandma's Camry and it was like driving a couch, I couldn't stand it. If you want something sportier than your grandma's Camry, this is definitely that. So I've given you the positives, I've given you the negatives in the most non-biased way possible. You kind of put that all together and see if it's for you. I definitely recommend the SE for those that want handling. Drive an SE, drive an XLE, drive an LE, see which one's better for you. But again, considering this is an 11-year-old car, I realize people aren't looking at 97s and 07s anymore. They're looking at these. So my review of it, it's a very good car. Just know what you're getting into compared to the older stuff. So I'm Drew. I hope this helps. If it does, if you learned anything at all, do please give the video a thumbs up, like it, subscribe it, share it if it was helpful at all. And we'll see you in the next one. God bless. Bye.